I mean, that is such a bop, Lauren Jones. I was dancing in the background.
So as many times as I've heard that, the in the background, that was the first time like I really listened to that.
Lauren, that's been the theme music for the podcast for 5 years.
I understand, but I try to listen to that.
I'm in the background like hitting it. I'm like hitting it. I'm like,
well, I'm mainly waiting for the waka. That's what I'm mainly
anyway, we haven't done a LinkedIn Live in a while. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Rob Mann. I am the co-host of the You Own the Experience podcast. With me, I have there's too many adjectives to describe how awesome this person is, Miss Lauren Jones or Mrs. Lauren Jones. And with us, we probably have someone we should have on more often, who we love, who is calm, who people probably trust because of his calmness more. He's got some stats to back up that his calmness sells. Mr. Casey Jacox, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm actually almost tore a hamstring doing the running man in the green room. Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, there's like by the way, when you're waiting to go live, it takes over the whole screen. Like there's like a little window of us you can see on the side. It might be like the size of a dime, but you can see all of us dancing.
I did not know that.
Can you see it, Casey, or is it only me?
I just saw myself. I was kind of, you look really good.
I'm the host. I'm the admin. I can see you guys in your little windows.
I did not know
dime size, but I can see you all moving.
I did feel like Ron Burgundy back there, just like you look really good.
Kind of a big deal. Anyway,
I'm kind of a big deal.
You guys know us. You know Lauren and I. You may not know Casey. Casey's got a pretty cool background. We're going to talk about sales here, but we'll give you some bona fides of why you should listen to Casey, and we'll let him do that himself real quick. If you want to give the 2-minute elevator pitch on Mr. Jacox.
From 2 minutes and scene. I'll go. I would say, former college athlete. Got to give some Uncle Rico love into the story.
Except you were actually a quarterback.
I was a quarterback. I did. But that's a long time ago, 30 plus years ago. But after spending 20 years in the wild world of staffing and consulting, professional services, I took a leap, no pun intended, in 2019. That was pretty well played right there, Lauren. And to write a book, which I did, called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. Started a podcast for dads called the Quarterback Dadcast. Without really knowing how long that would go, other than just a fun project. And here we are 6 years later with 306 episodes published with more in the tank. And my goal is to get to 1,000 and then reassess where to go with the podcast. Then the wide world of coaching and speaking found me. If I've been telling a lot of people this is serendipitously or corny or whatever you want to call it, it is a calling. Every customer I've worked with so far, everybody has been through personal referral, and it is absolute joy and honor because I always tell my customers whenever they close more deals, guess how much more I make, you guys? 0. But it feels amazing because the currency of karma continues to pay back. And simplistically, it's funny. My wife and I were talking about this weekend because she was like, sometimes she gets on me for like, you can't tell people you're a curiosity coach. I'm like, but I help people with curiosity. She's like, talk to me like a 2-year-old. She's like, okay. I'm like, okay, I help people spend time on the right things at the right time that increases revenue and stops wasting time in sales on sales prospects. Just simple. She's like, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good. I agree with her. That's a really good elevator pitch. I'd be down.
I think people who understand curiosity though would get that sales is a curiosity game.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Well, like the people who think about sales, right? Like our buddy Keith Waitman would be like, oh yeah, that tracks.
Well, Keith, I think Keith's one of the uncommon ones.
Yeah.
A guy named like Matt Ferguson's one of the uncommon ones. There's a lot of sales leaders out there, coaches, influencers that are doing some really, really. Chris Mader, another guy I'd give a shout out to.
I love Mader. I do think, Casey, you do need to write another book called The Curiosity or whatever, like some curiosity in sales. I think it's coming.
You just like Phil Collins. I can feel it coming.
He's not a singer, ladies and gentlemen, not a singer. But definitely
oh my goodness. Ba-dum.
This is the music episode, apparently. Well,
Yeah.
we didn't know that. We thought it was going to be a Lasso
Yeah.
episode.
How do we have this much energy at 7:40 Pacific?
Oh,
we do.
Yeah, by the way, they're both on Pacific time. I've been up since 5:30 a.m. Eastern time, so it's 10:40 Eastern, 7:40 PST.
So kind of an off-topic thing, but this weekend, so many people know that we rescue raccoons, and one of our raccoons brought her babies inside. And
How many babies do we have?
Two.
Oh.
So that was interesting. So we were not home. We were at the racetrack. It was our house sitter who got that little visit.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, always an adventure over here. Always an adventure.
So now we have 4 raccoons again, or 3 with the babies. 3
okay. Babies. Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's fun. Anyway, let's talk about sales, not raccoon babies. Although I am curious about
sales, baby.
Yeah, or raccoon babies. Let's talk about raccoon babies. We could do that too. That also fits in there. So Casey, we've been kind of well, you and I went to the ASG conference. We were sitting there in a room full of staffing and leaders and recruiting leaders, and you were talking, and then like you and Mark Winters and Tom Erb. So we had some OG sales legends in the house. You're now in that category. As you continue, you're definitely like a sales OG for staffing and recruiting, probably for more, but I consider you in there. And I think just kind of getting some clarity on sales framework, ICP, sales strategy. Like let's define some clarity here. Let's give people some clarity. I think that'll be super helpful. And then let's kind of break it into, maybe some anecdotal evidence, right? Let's tell the Ted Lasso story at the dartboard about why, you should be curious and not judgmental, but also in terms of sales and like how that helps. So I'll turn it over to you. And then Lauren, you have any intro stuff you want to cover first? Because you probably
I think we've lost a little bit of the fundamentals. There's this desperation, a little bit of desperation going on right now, as we work with we work with our customers. Everyone is focused in on sales and growth. The market, we've been in 30 months of essentially decline. And so, there is a bit of this feeling of desperation. When we get desperate, we get sloppy. And so what, part of what I wanted to do in this conversation is talk about, the fundamentals, the gaps in the process, right? Going back to the basics, picking up the phone, from all the way from picking up the phone. And it's kind of a lost art. And I think as automation kind of gets in the way of things, automation and AI gets in the way of things, I want to make sure that, we are winning the relationship, not making it a transaction. So,
and I will say that Lauren challenged me this 3 weeks ago, and I've made like calls every week, and I've gotten like 2 to 3 deals in the pipeline every week since the challenge. So definitely anecdotally pick up the phone. So
phone still works. That's why I pay my AT&T bill every month. They let me use it. And
I will say I'm mad at T-Mobile case because my internet, because they're my internet provider too through cellular, and it has been dropping every afternoon. So I don't know if more people signed up, but it's been slacking.
Yeah, it's that little green button on the phone. There's like a red one and the green, but you hit the green one, it actually sends a message out to someone else to say you want to talk to them. And sometimes they actually do pick up. It's really fun.
They really do.
It's a miracle, you guys. It's a miracle.
Or they call you back, which is nice.
Well, I think let's get to fundamentals. I think one of the reasons why people aren't on the phone, and I'm gonna call some leaders, call all leaders out. You're not doing it on purpose, but you're feeling stress. You want to grow the business. You're feeling pressure from your leadership team, from your PE firm, whoever you're doing, and you're putting pressure on the sales rep. What happens, that generates fear, and fear loves to hide inside sales teams. And when we don't inspect fear, I think people's confidence go down. And I think as a sales leader, one of your biggest jobs, in one man's opinion, not saying I'm right, is to instill confidence, remove fear, promote curiosity. When you can promote people, instill confidence, remove fear, promote curiosity. Right? Yeah. Because when people are curious and you're not afraid to ask a question of being judged internally or externally, wow, we actually can learn about something. We can learn about someone else. We can learn about a person, a project, a business. But when we're like, I don't know if I want to ask that because they're going to think I'm an idiot. And if they think I'm an idiot, then I'm not going to be able to work. They're not going to work with me. They're going to call the competitor. I'm screwed. Then I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to live in a van down by the river.
Did you reference Uncle Rico again already?
No, that was Chris Farley from Saturday Night Live. Okay. Dale Foley. No, not Matt Foley. Motivational speaker. Great episode. But I mean, joking aside, I wish, and I was talking to the customer last week. I said, I wish that I would, when I first worked at Hall Kenyon before Kay first purchased us in June 2004, I was so focused on like, okay, I gotta know about what this interview process is and understand what Java is. I mean, I didn't know anything about technology when I started. The only thing I knew about technology was how to restart my computer and when HTML error was, because that's someone pop up on my computer. That's all I knew.
Also know how to use Microsoft apps.
Barely. But what I had was something called drive and persistence and heart. And thankfully I had some really good leaders that just kind of like allowed us to learn and allowed us to like in the environment. So I think like just step one, if you're unsure if you have fear in your environment, sales leaders or executives, find out. Just say, Mr. Mrs. Salesperson, tell me two things, TED-based question coming. Tell me two things I do to remove fear. And tell me two things I do to create an environment where you can be as confident in your authentic self.
All right. And share with our listeners what TED is, because it is, I've taught it to my girls, and I never forget it.
I learned. He did it slyly there, by the way.
There he goes, the silent TED. I learned TED from a mentor of mine at age 41, a guy named John Kaplan. And I don't know who he learned it from, probably one of his mentors, but it is a simple way to ask questions. And I think like it's a language that you either can just let go or you can really, really inspect. And I'm of the belief that every word we say matters, every word we write matters, every word that is communicated matters, either through tone or body language, because it's going to create some sort of feeling on the other side, which is why Maya Angelou quote coming, why she said, it's not what you said, why you said, how do you make people feel? And I think TED, specifically when you put a number in the TED-based question, you get specifics. And I'm glad, Lauren, you said you taught your girls. I think parents practice on your kids. Mm-hmm. Like that's a great audience to practice on, because our kids, they won't know what the heck you're doing. And most kids between ages 9 through 16, you ask them, hey, how's school? Good.
What'd you do? Nothing.
Nothing.
By the way, as a teacher, when they used to say nothing in front of me, I'd be like, you're lying. Like you did something in class. I promise you.
Well, I would say, hey, what'd you learn today? Nothing. So I'm going to say, wow, that's awesome. So I'm going to call your teacher right now and say, Mr. Mrs. Teacher, you must be doing an atrocious job, because my kid said he sat there with you for 6 hours and learned nothing. Riley, do you want me to make that phone call? Nope. We learned a few things,
There you go. Yeah. Like they say it all the time, by the way. That is a gross, disservice to most teachers. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I find that tell me more gives me a moment of pause before I just react, right, to whatever somebody says, or, particularly with my girls, right? So the tell me more is really helpful to just give pause and give your brain a chance to not just immediately react or have an emotional reaction to something, but just pause.
I want to make sure people understand what you just did. So what you just did there, I call that second level TED. And there's something called third level TED and fourth level TED. And between second and fourth and fifth is where if you're a leprechaun, you're magically delicious. There's so much gold in those second, third, and fourth level.
You can use a Daft Punk song. It's not a leprechaun. It's a Daft Punk song. You get lucky.
No. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. No, so like, let's say you ask a question. Hey, Lauren, tell me how life's going. I don't think life's great. I had a raccoon bring his kids in there. Oh, wow. Tell me more about that.
Well,
so tell me more.
I'm a rescuer of raccoons, and I have one that's been around for 2 years now, and it had babies.
But yeah, good. But I think you have to have genuine curiosity and belief behind me here. Belief, like you really want to learn about somebody. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, they're going to fill you full of you know what. But if you're genuinely curious and you're like, okay, I'm here for a purpose. I believe what I do matters. I believe in my company. I believe in that I definitely can help somebody. And like slowing your mind down to that level of like focus, and then just focus on asking questions. And all the times I've said, tell me more, and I'm probably going to jinx myself now and someone's going to listen to this and call me out on it. No one's ever said, Casey, I don't want to tell you more about me.
Well, they like talking about themselves. It's perfect.
Yeah, they like talking.
Tell me more about how you tried to solve that if you're doing discovery. Like, have you tried to solve this in another way? Right? Like, describe how you tried to solve something. there's lots of easy kind of gifts to get to that secondary or tertiary level there.
Good word.
And I think it's we get a lot of people waiting for their turn to talk, and you can, I kind of immediately know that when they're going to jump on the last word, and the tell me more again, kind of just slows down the brain so that you aren't trying to solve whatever it is that's coming out of their mouth.
Yeah, that's good.
Well,
as we like the solution while we're on calls, we're like, wait.
We have to stop ourselves, and we'll even say out loud, occupational hazard is to try and fix your problem before we understand what it is. And I don't want to do a disservice to you. We want to make sure that we listen to everything.
Yeah.
I can give one more takeaway for people with what you just said, Lauren. You made me think about this. So like when you asked that and you said sometimes you got to slow your brain down, which most people I'm working with are going way too fast. So I'll ask you guys the same question. Tell me, can you hear this? Do you guys hear that?
Hear what?
There's no way you did.
Oh, the tapping.
I tap my tappy. I tap my finger 3 times. And by doing that, it slows me down. It's like a little method I use it for myself, not to ask multiple questions in one. Or if I ask a good question, create space for someone to want to listen or want to engage. But if I ask a great question and just don't create space, I ruin it.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And there's a lot of power in silence. You've heard that before, particularly if you're negotiating. But there's a lot of power in silence. And I think that we forget that. Just wanting to take whatever nervous energy we have and fill the space. And the space doesn't always necessarily need to be filled with words.
Yeah. I like when a good performance has a pause or a song has a pause.
Power
right?
of the pause.
Like that idea, right? Like, before like Celine Dion hits a big note, she pauses sometimes and there's nothing in there. It's just empty and it's bam. You're like, okay, that has a power.
Go and do it right now. And I'm your lady. Let it rip.
I reach out and I pull it down. It's just, All right. I'm really hoping, by the way, that Mackenzie is a singer like my wife, because then having 2 of them in the house would be so cool. Listening to my wife sing is very cool, by the way. So anyway, Casey, so we talked about TED, tell, explain, describe, really great way to create a conversation, show interest in another person, show that curiosity. Also, if you're not sure how to get to a second level, can you describe that? Like I'm having by the way, I'm having a hard time understanding that. Can you describe it a little bit more? It's a great way, but also like asking people for the answers to the test is a great way to do in sales. So if you're like, I started as a physician recruiter. I'm not an emergency medicine doctor. So doctor. Like, hey, doctor, can you tell me like what your day is like? Because then every other call, I can understand what they do, right? Like, hey, tell me what that first day is like when you go to a new hospital as a locums. And they're like, well, it's stressful. There's a whole new staff. It's like a new day. It's like a new crew. And then I work at 2 or 3 hospitals every month. And they're like, oh, like, how do you bridge the gap? How do you make friends? Oh, I bring them food. I'm like, oh, can I buy you pizza? Can I pay for the pizza for the new crew? Like, just give me the receipt. Feel free to like make friends and do what you have to do for the staff, So, or like buy them breakfast, whatever. So it's definitely, you can definitely ask the test for the answers, which the test in this case is the people you're working with.
And I went straight to Thompson Twins. Oh, doc.
This is why Lauren is really hard to work on a locum deal.
Good pull.
So excited. All right. Let's get back to the basics. So we're talking about fundamentals, talking about sales strategy versus framework, Casey. So what is the difference?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of I think sales vernacular buzzwords people use. I think a lot of times I hear the phrase sales framework. So they might think that, we have a discovery, we have a follow-up, we have
that's a process.
Whatever. To me, that's not a process. A process to me is a way you measure success of your pipeline or your health of your pipeline. And that's, I learned the power of that age 41.
Okay.
From, again, shout out to John Kaplan and team. And there's many companies that teach a sales process, which is, or I will say one of our large CRM friends in the staffing industry. They have their own sales process. It's a vernacular, whatever you mean, an acronym. The one that I follow that I love, actually use in my own business, is something called MEDDIC. MEDDICC. You can Google it, image it. There's many companies that teach it, do it, depending what scale, what level you're at. I do it more of a one-on-one basis with small to mid-sized teams. And to me, the biggest problem a sales process follows. So I will ask right now, if there's a sales leader watching right now and you're like, oh, we have a sales process. I'm like, great. Tell me how you measure the health of your pipeline. And then you might say an answer. But then if I said, let's say if I go to your sales team and I'm just like, Susie, hey, tell me when that ABC deal is going to close. And they say, I think like 2 weeks. And I go to Bobby, hey, Bobby, when's that sales pipeline going to close? I think like a week and a half. And then I go to Rachel and she's like, that's still open. And what the problem is you're measuring a sales health of a deal by gut feel.
Yeah. And
gut feel is not measurable.
Right.
And so having a sales process, there's this thing that's going to really remove out of our brain, 3 letters that really likes to just weigh us down, called your ego. Because we love to be right in sales. We love to convince ourselves that, no, I know what I'm talking about because they love me and I'm their favorite. No, you aren't. You're not their favorite. They like you. They're not your favorite. And so a sales process metric will kick you. You're going to be able to measure success of the deal or measure success of how this competitor's doing. You're going to understand who's financially responsible, like writing the checks, understand decision process, decision criteria. You're going to understand pain implication of not doing anything. We're going to learn to talk about who our competitors are. That's another gap most people don't do. Like, why would I learn about my competitors? Why wouldn't you? The more I understand about who my competitors are or aren't, I can ask questions to expose their gaps that maybe increases my value. And lastly, we're going to talk about something called the champion, which many people love to say, oh, I got champions. BS. I had two champions in my 20 years working in the staffing industry, too.
Well, then you talk about the story. You always tell that story of like asking one of your sales reps if he's a champion, then coaching him up to actually being a champion from really just kind of being like a cheerleader, right? Or whatever vernacular you want to give them. Cheerleaders are easy. Like the people that are in there that are rooting for you, that like, but can they actually, and this is why I really, then Lauren, Lauren has it too. It's the selling with, because if you have someone who knows your language, your value, and then can articulate it, but they're inside the business, obviously that's what a champion would be, right? They can sell you without you being in the room.
When you're not there.
And most people in sales are not in the room when decisions are being made. So you really that's why I really like that selling with framework from Nate Nasrallah. To your point, Casey, it's like, that's what a champion is, when they can sell for you.
And you don't know what they're going to say unless you test them.
And you help them and you engage them and collaborate with them into crafting the message, right? Crafting those sound bites, crafting the value prop, crafting the business case.
Well, and I think we need to go back to the ego thing, because I find that it gets in the way a lot. Ego is, you pick your acronym, easing God out, easing greatness out, easing good, easing goodness out. But there's a lot of that, particularly when there's failure or lack of response. We get in our own way. Well, they're just not interested anyway. And we tend to give up. Sales is just numbers, and that's kind of what I learned early on in that, because so I love data, right? And so I wanted to look at statistical data as to how many licks to the Tootsie Pop, right? When was the average sales rep sort of dropping off? And then you see that 90% of sales reps don't call back after the first, and it goes down, 80, 70, 60 for each call that you make. So at the end of the day, if you just keep going, right, you inevitably persist past your competitors, right? But sometimes we let our ego get in the way and we fail to persist.
That's a really good point. But I also would like creatively throw a different, maybe devil's advocate on that, because I'm a numbers person too, and I love follow up. However, and we said this before we start recording, but if we don't know who our ideal customer profile is, if we actually don't know who
Correct.
who uses our services and why would they use our services and how can we prove that they would use our services. Now it might just take time to get there. But like, let's say I'm in the staffing business selling technology services. Well, I'm probably not going to be calling a warehouse manager to see if they need a Java developer.
Yes.
But if I keep calling them and I convince them,
you're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, a Java dev could operate the forklift and go to town on that bad boy.
Yes.
Right? I'm being sarcastic, but
right? Boston Dynamic forklift drivers.
Yeah, exactly. Web services on the third floor. Here we go.
Yeah. Yes. Put an asterisk on that persistence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, but they both tie together appropriately, right? Like understand, and then, but also the story helps, right? Like the social proof of if you're calling the right person and not giving up, to your point, Lauren, with the right story, then you're going to have a lot better. So it's like, you know, what is a, like Casey could say, hey, because he sells sales coaching, like everyone's in sales. So is his TAM every business? Or does he have certain stories that are relevant to certain industries? Or, you know what I mean? Like it's not like meant to be kind of flippant. It's meant to be like, well, Casey's time is better served going after what as a sales rep? Because that's the finite resource.
Is that a question for me?
It's just a hypothetical thrown out to the room.
Yeah, I mean, for me, well, I'm very, very grateful that a lot of my clients have been through referral. But if I was hardcore hunting and doing campaigns, I would be very specific. I probably would start with staffing consulting companies just because I spent 20 years there. But I've worked with large golf retailers, large real estate firms, insurance, medical device, teachers, athletes. I think like if you're a lot of the work I do it goes back to fundamental relationships and how do we build relationships? Because I think most sales leaders aren't slowing down to teach them. They're telling them, hey, go build relationships. And the rep's scared, like, okay, I will. But how?
What does that mean?
How do I do that? Right. And like maybe you'll give another actionable takeaway for people if we're still watching that I've found ridiculously helpful, not in my own business, but also for the clients I work with, is just sending a meeting recap. And specifically a meeting recap, telling them you're going to send it and then sending it. And those that have read my book or page 82, 83 gives a real life example. Gives a real life example of Mr. and Mrs. Customer. Thank you for your time today. I want to recap. Here are the key 3 things I took from our conversation today. If I've missed anything in my documentation, please let me know so we can ensure we're both on the same page.
Yeah. And on the theme of documentation, I think this is where we were going before when we were talking about Medic. The reason why you have a hard time forecasting or your sales reps have a hard time forecasting is they don't track that. We're calling that the sales process, Casey, right? The sales process in the CRM or ATS, whatever it might be.
Or
in Medic,
the CRM is not configured to your sales process. This is what we see all the time.
Correct.
All the time. They have this ancillary Medic process or what have you that isn't reflected in any of the tools that they use. So there's no reinforcement. There's no reminder. There's no, you can't get the habit, you know, you can't get the habit going. And we see that all the time.
And I think to Casey's point, right? Casey asked Rob, "Hey Rob, how are you feeling about this deal?" Well, Casey, let me go look in the deal record. Okay, I see I have what the pain is, right? I've asked them a bunch of questions about like, is this a priority? What happens if we don't solve it? I ask them all these questions, right? We have all that data listed in there, so Casey can go in and see it. I know the decision criteria. I know the timeline. I know how they make a decision, and I have a date when they have the meeting, right, to make this decision. I don't have a champion per se, but like I've talked to there's notes on every C-suite person. Casey can go in and see all of that. So when he comes to me, he has as a sales leader, he has an idea already of what's going on in the deal. He already can see kind of the health, right? And then he says, "Hey, how do you feel about it?" And I say, I don't have a gut reaction. I say, "Hey, Casey, I think we've done everything we can in our playbook, and we have a really deep understanding. We've been made vendor of choice. We know all the criteria. I'm no longer kind of guessing. I'm now saying scientifically, based on what I've been told, which I'm assuming to be the truth because I'm a partner to this person as opposed to a vendor, right? I'm a vendor, but like we're more of a partnership. We've been speaking for months or whatever. I feel pretty good about this. Like I feel good based on X, Y, and Z.
So if I was your sales leader, I heard that I would say, pretty good's not good enough.
Well, yeah. What else can we do? That's what.
Yeah, but let me just, and then I would nicely say, I would say, man, Rob, you got so much of that stuff. That's freaking awesome, dude. Because it is awesome. I go, however, there's some things we don't know, and we're leaving that up to chance, and our chance might roll. We might get red on this roulette. We might get black, but it might be green. Yeah. And I'd rather know before we hit spin again. And that's what I found. That's when I really had to like reteach myself and this mindset of it's okay not to know everything. It's just not okay not to do anything about it. And the power of just saying, I feel, because to me, I would like to say, this thing, I think it's about 85% chance to close. I feel really good about it.
What do we need to do for the other 15? Yeah, like, I was just giving you a scenario. I wasn't saying that I wasn't going to do anything.
No, I know, but I think it's good you said that, so people who are listening at home can at least, because their reps probably say. I know we were just like doing a sample thing, but like if we were doing a rep told me, if they said, I'm working with them like from a coaching perspective, maybe they might say, oh, they definitely know what we do. I go, great, tell me why. Tell me how. How do you know? Because I told them. I go, great. When did you tell them last? A year and a half ago.
What numbers did you provide them? Did you make a business case with them?
Or they're memorizing your sales collateral every day, or they're worrying about their own business and their own challenges.
And that's why we like things like, we talk about deal rooms or business cases, right? Like whether you use a deal room to provide the business case or not, right? Like mutual action plan business case shows collaboration. I always like when you have like the John Burroughs talking about scoring a deal, right? Like how many points are they giving? How many points did you give versus how much they give you? And that works into the sales process, right? Like, because if you're just sending them stuff or telling them the business case a year ago, but they haven't scheduled a meeting with you, they haven't called you, they haven't asked you questions, like it's a relationship to your point, Case. So like if you don't know how much they've given back, then are they scheduling meetings with you? Are they giving you access to the other, there's all kinds of points there's all different ways to kind of measure the health as you progress, and you're never done, right? And so even when it's signed, you're never done. To what you were saying, right? As a sales leader.
Yep. So long-winded, I would say, if you don't have a sales process, research one, ask for help.
Yeah. Implement it into your system so you can use it as a data point to track, because look, you'll find gaps where the rep didn't know this information and it's blank in the CRM. And then you're like, well, I can't book this deal. I can't consider this forecasted to close because we don't know these things. And you'll find trends in your data for sure.
You said something there. You said something there that I want to go back to as well. And I see this happen a lot with just sales personalities. And that is not asking for help. They're stuck. Oh, yeah. They need another voice in the conversation. They're not sure how to articulate the solution back to the client, or whatever that might be. But the asking for help is one of the gaps that I see pretty consistently. And a lot of times it's so the things that just take a fresh set of eyes are so simple. And we just kind of can't get past, again, that ego, right? To ask for help. And I'll be the first to admit, sometimes it's really hard for me to ask for help. Women statistically are less inclined to ask for help. And I think we forget, our network is our net worth, mm-hmm. and that net worth can reveal itself in so many helpful ways. Whether it's your boss or your mentor or what have you, just asking for help to try and get you past a certain point is a lost art.
It's a really good point, Lauren. And I think I touched on it earlier about fear.
False emotion appearing real.
Like that. But if we have fear in our culture, people are not going to ask for help.
Right. You're not wrong.
So sales leaders or revenue leaders or executives, I would love to challenge you. When's the last time you said, maybe you start your sales team meeting or your operations meeting, you said, hey, before we get started, I wanted to slow down. I have a question that I'm going to ask you that probably I've never asked you before. And maybe we pause and we say, tell me, have I ever told you when I almost got fired? Or team, have I ever told you when I was really, really scared and didn't know what the hell I was doing? And I finally had to ask for help. Have I ever shared that with you? And that might sound silly or might sound like, but I found it to be really, really impactful, because then it's like, if my leader, if he or she is honest and says, there was times I didn't know what the frick I was doing. And at least that creates space to knowing, okay, wait, maybe I can ask for help too.
And I think it's really powerful for your team to see you mess up. I had one very recently. I came to the team meeting and I'm like, guys, I messed up big time, like very big time. And here's what I did. Here's how I'm going to react. Here's, what I want you to watch out for. Because I think that fallibility is a really powerful connector sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't even think it was that, like, it was a big mess up because of who they both were, but like that happens a lot where Lauren emailed the wrong person because of the same name. Like that happens. It's just unfortunate sometimes.
Yeah.
That, but like it's important that you shared it, because like I feel like for me I was like, oh, that sucks, but it happens, and we can go build credibility because everyone's human.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely appreciate it. But like in my brain I'm like, that mess up was.
It was very, very human, but it's very, very real, and it's something we have to.
It sucked who they were, because like the customers were,
But anyways.
Yeah. Anyway,
I agree.
It's honesty.
Yeah.
I love that, Lauren.
Yeah.
Great example.
I think the other thing too, Casey, is like being like opening up the playbook too. To your point of like telling stories, like, hey, I when I was a sales rep, I used to tag my CEO in deals and ask him to send an email to the CEO of the company. And ask him and say hey, I know we're deep in talks. I just want to let you know I'm here. Like having talking about a playbook and then making it easy. Like, hey, here's an email template you can use to ask the CEO, and just fill it out for him and forward it to him and say, hey, send it to this email with this subject line and go. Like just like little stories about like how you include teamwork in the process to help you win deals too in the past.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't win the deal. Like, our shout out to our good friend Donnie Payne, the SVP over at Bullhorn, but like the motto at Bullhorn for his team is never win alone, never lose alone. Right? You would be in so much trouble at Bullhorn if you lost the deal and didn't try and get Donnie involved or get someone else on the team involved in some way. But if you lost and it was everyone involved and everyone was, to our point, like there was, we were constantly asking like, what else do we need to do to get this across the line? And you lost, like you just learned from it. But if you did it alone, you just did it in a vacuum, there's nothing worse. So
love it. Well said.
Yeah. I think that really resonates a lot.
So as we kind of bring this conversation full circle on fundamentals, ICPs, process, sales framework, TED, ego, and all the acronyms associated with that, what final words of wisdom on curiosity and relationship would you leave with these fine people that are listening to this?
Well, my favorite question I have not shared yet that I will ask is, next time you start a meeting with a customer, instead of going in knowing exactly what you want to do, exactly what you want to say, you got that 14-page PowerPoint document. You can't wait to just share in there, because most likely they're going to black out and not even listen to you anyways.
Yeah.
You start with this and you say, if I was meeting with you, I'd say, Rob, Lauren, great to see you guys today. I know we spent a few minutes on the phone last week and appreciate you making time to meet me today. But before we get started, describe what would be an ideal outcome for you in the time we have today. Mm-hmm. So that question slows me down to make sure that, wait, what I thought I wanted to talk about, does it match what the customer wants to talk about? And if it doesn't, then shut the F up and don't tell them all about these things, but ask questions. Yeah. Ask questions, ask TED-based questions to see if maybe what I spoke about over here, maybe it will be valuable at one point in the conversation. Maybe they just aren't ready to hear it or listen to it because they don't understand what I'm talking about yet.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think the other thing too of that, Casey, that I immediately think of is one of my friends, Kendra Cato, started enterprise calls with what's changed since the last time we spoke. Which is, I think your question is better because it covers both.
I do both though. To your point, I I teach.
Okay.
Tell me what's changed.
So you like both?
So if a deal gets stuck,
'Cause I
I'll
think-
say, tell me what's changed, Mr. and Mrs. Client. I'm looking at our meeting recap. You told me that you had to get a decision based on June 29th. Today's the 30th. Tell me what's changed.
Yeah. I ask it a different way.
Or-
And it's, so what are your expectations? And that's just war wounds, right?
Mhm.
Of unspoken expectations kill all things. In personal relationships, think about a time where you expected something of somebody and you never articulated that, and then immediately they disappoint you, right? Well, they had no idea. Well, the same thing is applicable in these conversations. So, okay, so what do you expect to get out of our time together today? It's just a different way of asking pretty much the same question to ensure that, when you get to the end of the conversation, you've met whatever expectation they came to the table with, not having articulated to you or put in an email or had a conversation with the 16 other vendors that they're also considering, right? So I think these are all like different ways to ask that question, but meaningfully come to a really good outcome.
Yeah, I think the other question I like to ask is, I had this issue with one of my sales reps, is he would just start talking about the deck, to your point, Lauren.
Show up and
And I was
tell.
like, you sent this person an email. They gave you their time, which is their most precious commodity. Why don't you ask them what in the email triggered them to book time with you? And like, you could ask like, hey, describe what would make this, the most valuable for you. And then if you've talked to them before, what's changed? But like, at the end of the day, like the mindset is, why are you giving me your time? And like, how do we make it valuable?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So anyway, Casey, and thank you for giving us your time this morning. Very bright and early.
No, it was a blast. I love spending time with you guys. It's grateful. The path of entrepreneurship has taken us to you both, and I consider you guys good friends, and respect the work you do, and know you guys are doing amazing things to help so many different companies out there.
Right back at you.
Yeah. And are we writing a new book?
Yep.
It's definitely, it's out there. But I honestly, the reason why I have it, Rob, is because I feel like there's so much more I can get out of the first book. I don't think,
That's fair. No, I think that's
I just
fair.
don't think enough. I don't think enough people have heard about it. And I think people who have read it, when they reread it, like me as the author, I've read it probably 10 times, not because I'm an egomaniac, just through the editing process. When I go back and work with the team, I learn from myself.
Yeah.
Which means I'm flawed just like you.
But it doesn't mean that you haven't added things to your repertoire that might need to be amended.
No, I hear that.
Which would drive people back to the first book.
Well, and just as someone who's in the process of writing their second book, you sell more of your first book when you write your second book.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So don't think that you're limited.
Put it out.
You can do it.
You can do it.
You're not limited by your sales because your first book you don't think is penetrated enough. Your second book helps the penetration, to Lauren's point. Anyway, we're just trying to make you another right.
Really is what I wanted to do.
Sorry, Mrs. Jacox. All right. Hey guys, if you can't find Casey, he is online. It's just Casey Jacox on LinkedIn. What is the email address, Casey, if they want to?
Easy, just Casey at CaseyJacox.com.
Way to make it really easy to find. All right. I appreciate it. Lauren, thank you guys for both getting up real early. And if you guys have any questions on sales, feel free to reach out. If you want to configure a sales CRM, Leap can help. If you want to organize and figure out the philosophy of a sales CRM and strategy, that's what Mr. Jacox.
Can I add one last thing?
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I would say, sales teams, if you don't practice, you are on the C team or the JV. And no offense to C teams or JVs. If you want to be better, if you wish to be better, if you want to become elite, practice. And I can tell you, I still practice before I give a presentation. I go a dry run. If I role play with executives all the time.
You can role play with AI now. That's kind of one of the benefits. You can have full conversations in different languages with AI. If you want to learn a language, you can have them mimic. By the way, case unrelated. There's a sales software, calling software that has like 16 AI personalities. And on the demo, we did that one, like the difficult one. And the rep was like, oh my God, this one is miserable. I'm never demoing with this AI avatar personality again.
Yeah. I think
anyway.
those are great. I'm a little old school. I think doing it with a human and your colleague, it really allows the humility and vulnerability to come out and shows that person.
Sometimes you're doing it like 10 p.m.
I know, but if I show AI that I don't have an ego or if I'm working with you, I'm like, dude, you just stumped me and I don't know what to say. This is embarrassing. No, but it's okay. We're learning together.
Right.
I think that can be really, really powerful when teams still rely on the human element of team building.
Agree.
You did write a book about relationships. All right, guys. Here we go. Thanks again.
You guys.
Thanks, everyone.